So, good evening and welcome to Daily News Simplified. In today's edition, dated 21st of April 2024, we have the following 4 articles for your perusal. We will be starting with a very interesting article with respect to international relations, that is AUKUS and Rarotonga Treaty. And I'm sure that most of the new aspirants who have joined us must not be aware about this particular treaty, right? Next, we will move on to the next article, that is with respect to credit program launched by the government of India and the issues arising out of that particular program. Then there was a very interesting article with respect to the use of single-use plastic and what is the Indian stand with respect to the usage of single-use plastics. And lastly, we will be dealing with an article that will deal with that is with respect to the National Research Foundation initiative and the issues arising with respect to the research ecosystem in India. So without further delay, let us begin our session. Okay, so the first article that we are going to deal with is with respect to AUKUS and Rarotonga Treaty. The particular news appeared on page number 14 of the Hindu paper today. What is the context of this news? The context of this news is that recently the Chinese foreign minister made a remark that the AUKUS agreement has the potential to risk nuclear proliferation in the Pacific region. Okay, so what is the syllabus mapping of this particular news? This is important with respect to your GS paper 2 and particularly in reference to your international relations. And in past, there has been a previous year question which was with respect to nuclear proliferation and overall nuclear regime governing the world. Okay, so the PYQ was, in what ways would the ongoing US-Iran nuclear pact controversy affects the national interests of India, and how should India respond to the situation? So this was the MCQ, I guess, in 2016. Okay, so let us understand the context of the news. And in this particular news, there was a paragraph in which the Chinese foreign minister had remarked that the three-way AUKUS agreement runs counter to South Pacific Treaty banning nuclear weapons. That got me thinking that what is all about this treaty. So initially the article was only supposed to be about AUKUS, but later on we did the research and prepared a few bullet points with respect to the treaty also, right? So let us understand briefly about the Treaty of Rarotonga. So official name of this particular treaty is Treaty for South Pacific Nuclear Free Zone. So this is what the Chinese foreign minister was saying, that the installing of nuclear submarines by Australia, or that is AUKUS, will be violative of this particular treaty. This treaty was entered into force in 1986, and the backdrop of this treaty was a series of nuclear underwater testing that was done by United States of America, and later on it was discovered that small islands like Cook Island, like French Polynesia, like Tonga, these islands had adversarial effects with respect to the nuclear testing. So they came up with a provision that yes, the South Pacific Ocean region will be a nuclear free zone, and the name of this treaty, Rarotonga, has been derived from one of the largest islands on the Cook Island. Okay, so what is the extent of this treaty? The extent of this treaty extends from eastern coast of Australia to the boundary of Latin America. And what is the membership of this treaty? The current state membership is close to, that is 14. The members of this treaty are Australia, Cook Island, Fiji, Kiribati, Nauru, New Zealand, New Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Solomon Island, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. Except for Australia, most of these are small islands of the Pacific Ocean. And the coordinating mechanism for this treaty is Pacific Islands Forum, right? So its secretariat is the coordinating mechanism for this particular implementation of this particular treaty as well. So now let us understand the backdrop of the news. Recently there was a project that is with respect to development of nuclear powered submarine that which was signed between Australia, USA, and UK. Basically, USA and UK are empowering Australia with respect to nuclear powered submarine. Now, why is it important? Because nuclear powered submarine is considered as one of the biggest weapons of deterrence, right? So we'll be understanding the basics of these terms in the subsequent slides. Now let us understand what is the meaning of AUKUS. So in this graphic representation, we have collected all the organizations that are available with respect to the Indo-Pacific region. So if we take India, Japan, Australia, and United States, we make a quad. If we take Canada, New Zealand, Britain, Australia, and United States, we make the Five Eyes Alliance. Pardon. Sir, okay. Then moving on, if we take Australia, United States, and Britain, we deal in terms of AUKUS. One second for the disruption. सर ये थोड़ा सा कुछ प्रॉब्लम आ गया इसमें. माउस से होगा क्या? Sorry for the interruption. Coming back to the discussion, let us discuss about the institution of AUKUS. So, AUKUS is a security partnership that was formed by United States, UK, and Australia in Indo-Pacific region, and with the aim to counter Chinese aggression. Right? What is the inherent purpose behind establishment of AUKUS? First is to re-establish the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific region. The backdrop of this is that Chinese Navy had started asserting its dominance with respect to the Indo-Pacific region, right? So if we talk about the west of Malacca, the situation was advantageous because Indian Navy is also constantly patrolling the Indian Ocean. But what if it is about the Pacific Ocean? The problem with respect to Pacific Ocean was that there was no such empowered navy because the various countries, Pacific Island countries, do not possess navy, strong navy as such. And with respect to the Australian Navy, they only had conventional diesel electric submarines as such. So that is in this backdrop, USA and UK initiated a project to empower them with respect to the nuclear powered submarine. The advantage with respect to nuclear powered submarine is that it can go on for a long duration of time within the ocean, and since it does not require any fuel except for the nuclear fuel, so it can go undetected for a long period of time in the ocean. So that is why it is considered as one of the supreme weapons of deterrence, right? However, the submarines that have been provided to the Australia will carry only conventional missiles and not nuclear armed missiles. Okay, so and the second coming back to the topic, the second purpose was with respect to resolving the dilemma of Taiwan Strait crisis. So in the recent times, Chinese Navy has been conducting various kinds of drills when it comes to the Strait of Taiwan. So what if there is an actual event of war? So in this particular case, the other commands of United States Navy will take a little bit of more time. But if Australia has conventional submarines, so Australia will be able to reach and take charge of the situation in a faster and speedier manner. Now let us understand about the nuclear deal that was undertaken. So this, as per this agreement, Australia will be provided with nuclear propelled submarine to promote deterrence and stability. Next objective is to transform Australia's underwater strategic ambitions. And the third objective is with respect to countering the dramatically expanding Chinese Navy both at the surface level as well as the subsurface level. Next objective is bringing Indo-Pacific region security back into the focus. See, in the past 17th and 18th and even 19th and 20th century, this region has been a battleground for the great parts. In fact, we have seen in the 18th, 19th and 20th century, the navies of Britishers ruled over the Indian and Pacific Oceans, right? So even today, there is a willingness in the minds of the British that we should again establish a sphere of Anglo-Saxon powers, right? So in this context, they again want to come back and assert their dominance in the Indo-Pacific region. And the next objective is in the similar spirit, that it reopens UK's claim for long-term role in the Indo-Pacific region. Now let us understand what will be the benefits of AUKUS for India, as well as we will understand what will be the challenges faced by AUKUS for India. So the first advantage when it comes to AUKUS for India will be strengthening of India-Australia relations. Obviously, we share a very strong bilateral relation. We already have an initiated 2+2 dialogue, and mutual logistical supply agreement was signed recently, but it will further strengthen India and Australian relations. Next argument that this agreement will benefit India is with respect to that it will augment Quad's capabilities. As of now, Quad is now seen as a more of an economic and strategic grouping, but it does not have particular teeth, right? So because of India's reluctance to weaponize Quad is not having any strategic capabilities. So if by the addition of these nuclear submarines, AUKUS will be providing Quad with teeth, right? Then the third argument because of which it benefits India is that it clarifies the role of big powers in the Indian Ocean. First of all, it reaffirms that UK is having a tilt again towards the Indo-Pacific region. Then again, it also shows that USA is also serious about the Indo-Pacific Ocean. And thirdly, and most importantly, in the past 1 decade, there was an assessment in the mind of UK's policymakers that yes, China is an economic threat, but it is not a strategic threat. But now this agreement particularly shows that UK is reassessing its policy options, and UK is reassessing its stance with respect to China. Then the fourth advantage or benefit with respect to AUKUS for India might be that in past France was, because this nuclear technology is very guarded very strongly, right? Nobody is ready to sell or share their nuclear power reactor technology with any other country, except the exception for India as of now has been Russia, right? So earlier, what was the plan? That Australia was supposed to purchase diesel electric submarines from France. But because of this particular contract, Australians are purchasing nuclear powered submarines. So France is also, first of all, France is feeling left out, that why weren't we considered before signing this deal, right? And second, they are having a kind of economic loss because the deal with France for diesel electric submarine has been scrapped. Now, since India has already purchased various Scorpion submarines that are diesel electric submarines from France, what they can offer us is nuclear powered submarines or nuclear reactor core, right? And then lastly, the advantage is that in Quad, Japan and India, see, Quad means in Japan, Australia, India, and USA. See, Australia and USA have already been very aggressive in their stance, but Japan and India are assumed to be a balancing and sane voice in Quad. So, India and Japan were under unnecessary pressure to bow to the dictates of USA and weaponize Quad. But since AUKUS takes place of the teeth, so India and Japan will no longer be facing issues with respect to weaponization of Quad. So these are the advantages for Quad, advantages of AUKUS for India. And now let us understand what can be the challenges for India with respect to Quad. Right. So the first challenge that we have already discussed is with respect to tussle between AUKUS and France. So brief background with respect to this was that before signing the deal, even France is a Western power and a very close ally of USA in the region. But France was not considered while signing this deal. And apart from this, France had to bear an economic loss as well. Right. So, and the second point is with respect to France, discontent with USA feeds China's narrative of unreliability. Since France has become discontent and dissatisfied with respect to USA's stance, what we can see, it projects badly on the character of USA, that USA is there only for their own self-interest and USA cannot be relied. So this kind of perception is built by China that we are not the threat, we are unnecessarily being made a threat by the USA, and USA will use a particular country for their own advantage and then that particular country will be discarded. So because of the dissatisfaction shown by France, this stand will be echoed once again. Okay. Then the third disadvantage can be, since USA and India's relationship to a large extent is the nearness in the relationship is with respect to China, but with respect to after weaponization of AUKUS, there can be a event in which there can be a dilution of US interest in India. Then fourth disadvantage can be that there can be a shrinking space for India in the Quad, and again overall relevance of Quad might be questioned. So this is all with respect to our AUKUS, and please also remember the Treaty of Rarotonga that we have discussed, and also try to go home and Google, right? There are around 6 nuclear weapons free zone in the world. Try to see them, search them, read about them, and write them down in the comment section of the video, right? Moving on to the second topic of the day, that is with respect to green credit program. The news appeared on page number 12 of the Hindu newspaper. The context of this news is that Environmental Ministry has issued guidelines on green credit program. Prior to these guidelines, the focus of green credit program was merely with respect to the plantation of trees, but now they have taken a comprehensive approach with respect to restoration of ecosystem, restoration of overall ecosystem. See, trees are only one of the components of ecosystem. They are very helpful in restoration of ecosystem, but restoration of trees does not in itself leads to restoration of ecosystem. So they will now be taking a comprehensive, wholesome approach with respect to restoration of ecosystem. What is the syllabus mapping of this news? It is with respect to conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, and environmental impact assessment, that is given in your GS paper 3. Okay. And there has been a PYQ in 2014 with respect to carbon credits in your mains examination GS paper 3. So now let us understand the concept of green credit. So green credit is nothing but an innovative market-based mechanism to incentivize voluntary actions of environmental conservation. Now let us try to decrypt this definition. It is an innovative. First of all, there is an element of innovation involved. It is again a market based, which means it can be monetized. This scheme can be monetized. It is a market based mechanism to incentivize voluntary actions. The actions are going to be voluntary, and who all can perform these actions? These actions can be performed by individual, NGOs, SHGs, and even private companies. So what is this basic mechanism about? That you go and plant tree, the government will recognize that yes, they have planted a tree in the fallow land, and they will credit your account with 1 unit of carbon credit, and this particular credit can be later on monetized basically. Okay, so let us briefly understand about the background and details of the program. This program was an initiative under the overall life approach. Okay, so this is we'll be seeing what are the other components of life approach. What does it envision? It envisions the issue of green credits for plantation on waste or degraded land. So basically the fallow land which has been degraded, on this particular landscape, trees will be planted. Okay, there are win-win situations with respect to this. Once the trees are planted, the fallow land or bad land will be rejuvenated, and along with it, the company which is, let us say a company is investing in the plantation of trees, this company will get carbon credit. It is a win-win situation basically for everyone. These are going to be fully digital and tradable instruments for environmental sustainability. What is the implementing agencies with respect to this project? It will be administered by Indian Council for Forest Research and Education. This is a point to be remembered by you. While the other conventional programs only focus on the reduction of CO2, for example, your BS6 scheme, what is the purpose? What is the outcome? The reduction in the CO2. But this scheme is innovative in the sense that it has its focus on overall environmental obligation, and at the same time it can be monetized. We will see the 8 subsectors in the next slide. And then afforestation initiatives, again we have already discussed it that these initiatives can be taken up by individuals, NGOs, SHGs, as well as the body corporate. Now there are 8 areas of green credit which have been mentioned in the scheme. The first area with respect to green credit is obviously tree plantation. You go, you take permission, government will identify patches of fallow land. Basically the forest department of the concerned state will plant a tree on your behalf. Second is with respect to project with respect to water conservation, sustainable agriculture, waste management, air pollution reduction, mangrove conservation and restoration, eco-mark scheme, and sustainable building and infrastructure. These are the 8 subcomponents of this particular scheme. Okay, now moving on, and let us understand what can be the perceived issues and concerns with respect to this scheme. The critics of this scheme say that this kind of trading mechanism leads to commodification of environmental conservation. In India, environment is considered to be sacred issue, right? Many communities, for example, even uh, do religious activities in forest. For example, there is a concept of sacred forest in India, and again in India, environmentalism, unlike in the West, the Western model of environmentalism was uh, very much the byproduct of scientific and research studies. But in India, what we see is that it is about the value system which we have ingrained in our uh, in our culture. So this kind of scheme leads to commodification of the issue of environmental sustainability. Second is with respect to that it makes it easy for the mining companies for the diversion of land. So what will they do? Basically, they will ask for a certain plot of land, that is greenfield land. They will fell off the trees over there, and what will they do? Once they'll set up the factories, mining units, and they will contribute a certain sum for the afforestation. So why is this mechanism debatable? Because you are presently cutting a tree and presently harming the environment, and whatever money you are donating, money you are paying, those trees will be matured in the maybe perhaps a decade or so. So you are harming the environment right now only to uh, only for the future benefits. Okay, so this is with respect to the issue of mining companies. The third is with respect to planting trees does not automatically boost the ecosystem. In ecosystem is a broader term, because in ecosystem the concepts like various native species, right? Provision for water, soil conservation, birds, so on and forth are also involved. And merely planting trees might not lead to the desired outcomes. Then there are allegations that there might be a threat of invasive species, because what will they do? Usually these kind of forestry mechanism will be initiated on badlands. So because why are those lands badlands? Because they do not have reproductive capability, they cannot sustain forest life on those lands. If we artificially try to plant forests over there, it may lead to plantation of invasive species. Like for example, eucalyptus was planted once again. At that point of time, it must have been lauded, very laudable affair. But now, as of now, we all know that it is one of the most water guzzling plants, right? Again, there is a concern with respect to that this kind of scheme might lead to a monoculture. What is the meaning of monoculture? That one specific variety. In ecosystem there are various kinds of trees, shrubs, herbs, so on, even grass, so on and forth. But what will this lead to do? This will lead to monoculture. By the monoculture, we mean that one particular species of plants will be planted and other plants will not be planted. So obviously, there are allegations that will lead to monoculture. And lastly, the financial equation with respect to the trading is still unclear, right? So with this, we will move on to the next topic. The next topic is with respect to the use of single use plastic. This particular news appeared on page number 9 of the Hindu newspaper today. What is the context of this news? The context of this news is that there is going to be a meeting in Canada with respect to phasing out of single use plastics. And ahead of these negotiations, India has made its position clear with respect to the use of single use plastic. What is India's position? That we need regulation. We are okay with regulation of affairs, but we are not okay with respect to complete ban. So in this context, let us understand what is the syllabus mapping. And the syllabus mapping is with respect to again your GS paper 3, in which conservation, environmental pollution and degradation is mentioned. And in past 2023, there has been a direct question on oil pollution. So what was the question? The question was, what is oil pollution? What are its impacts on marine ecosystem? And in what way oil pollution particularly is harmful for a country like India? So on similar grounds, there can be a question on single use plastic, its impact on the marine ecosystem, and what are the steps taken by India in this context, right? So let us understand what is single use plastic. So friends, plastic is all around us. Perhaps if you are writing with a pen, that particular pen is also made up of plastic. What I am writing on, this tab is also made up of plastic. So what is the difference between regular plastic and single use plastic? So regular plastic or general use plastic is the plastic which can be used multiple number of times. For instance, let us say suppose you have a pen in your hand. So once this pen's refill is finished, I'll go and buy another refill. So this pen can be continuously used over the period. I'll use maybe perhaps 10 refills before I throw this particular pen out. But let me take an example of this particular bottle. This particular bottle, as soon as the water is over, what will I do? I'll just throw it off and it will amount to a garbage, right? It has solved its purpose once the water is out, completed or finished. So single use plastic goods, these are the goods made primarily from fossil fuel based chemicals and or for example petrochemicals, and these are meant to be disposed of right after use. For example, I'll not be keeping this bottle after the water is finished, right? Okay, so I'll just throw it off. Similarly, all the single use products, once they complete their utility, they are not used after that particular use. Okay, so in what sectors single use plastic is used? It is generally used in sectors like bottle, serviceware, okay, wrappers, straws and poly bags. Once the purpose is solved, you just throw it off and it amounts to perpetual garbage. It is one of the most important challenge that the humanity is facing. And in this backdrop, India had imposed a nationwide ban on plastic bags, cups and straws in 2019. Right. So let us have a quick recap on the biodegradability of these particular products. So a plastic bottle that I'll just throw off after I drink water, it will last, unless processed, it will last for 450 years. That is close to 7-8 times the lifetime of an average human being. Okay, so before it gets degraded. Similarly, plastic bag will last for 20 years before it gets degraded. Even plastic straws have the propensity to last for 200 years. So you must also be seeing and noticing that certain plastics have disappeared in the past couple of years from your observation. For example, if you use earbuds, earlier there used to be plastic earbuds, right? But now you will see bamboo earbuds for your use. Similarly, if you purchase real fruit juice or so, right, you will not see plastic straws given with attached with the fruit juice boxes. You will see paper straws attached with the juice boxes. So these are the small little changes which the government is promoting and initiating with respect to banning the single use plastic. So again, which are the elements or items which have come under ban of single use plastic? So single use plastic poly bags, earbuds, right, plastic flags, candy sticks, so on and forth have been banned by the government of India in a phased manner. what are the inherent issues around single use plastic? Let us understand. First is, it is a non renewable product. Once it is used, its utility is generally lost, and it will contribute to the garbage for perpetuity, perhaps even for 400 years. And we do not have the infrastructure to recycle the particular product, and only 13% of plastic items in India are recycled. Then again, the next aspect is with respect to the pollution, that these have the largest contribution with respect to the pollution in India. Third is energy intensivity. The production process with respect to the single use plastics not only uses high energy, but it also uses high amount of fresh water. So anyways, that is creating a kind of double burden. First, in the production stage itself, it is consuming huge amounts of electricity as well as water, and again the byproduct after the usage is also kind of creating a nuisance for the environment. Then there is a threat to aquatic life. You must have seen various pictures with respect to you must have also seen the Great Pacific garbage patch, right? So basically this is nothing but a patch that has been developed in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so next aspect is with respect to threat to aquatic life, and not just the aquatic life but all the marine food chain. And not only for the marine life, it is also cancerous and may cause birth if defects and impaired immunity with respect to humans as well, right? Now let us understand what are the government and global initiatives that have been taken with respect to plastic pollution. In 2022, initiated we had a target that we will end the single use plastic in a phased manner by 2022. To a large extent, the government has been successful in this particular program, but again, single use plastic keeps coming on and on and on in different forms. In United Nations Environmental Assembly in 2019, we piloted a resolution on combating pollution. Okay, then we have also initiated Beat Plastic Pollution Resolution announced at the World Environment Day in 2022. We have again initiated a project Replan, that can be a useful information for the preliminary examination. The project Replan is associated with reducing plastic in nature. This has been launched by Khadi and Village Industries Commission, and the objective is to reduce consumption of plastics bags by providing more sustainable alternatives like khadi bag, jute bag, right, so on and forth. Then in G20 environmental ministers meeting, we adopted a new implementation framework for actions to tackle the issue of marine plastic waste. This is of particular importance because marine ecosystem is part of global commons, and once the wastage goes into the marine life, it because at least if it is on the land, there is a chance that it will be processed, if not today but tomorrow. But once it goes into the marine ecosystem, nobody takes the accountability and responsibility, and it lies continuously in the uh, marine patch. Okay, next, in 2016 we introduced new plastic waste management rules, and we mandated for the development of infrastructure with respect to collection, segregation, collection, processing and disposal of plastic waste. And in 2018 we introduced one of the first times for one of the first time we introduced the concept of extended producer responsibility for the with respect to single use plastics. So what is the meaning of extended producer responsibility? That the producer of this particular plastic will be responsible if that particular plastic is uh, single use plastic. Obviously the producer, after the the objective has been fulfilled, will be also responsible for the recycling of this particular product. Now, what is the way forward with respect to the use of single use plastic? The first suggestion is with respect to effective waste management. Then we can go for sustainable products. Then the alternative is with respect to chemical recycling and upcycling of various polymers. Chemical recycling expedites the process of degradation of these plastic products. Then there is a scheme with respect to promoting use of waste plastics, and waste plastic can be used for the development of roads, for the filling material, structural material. It can be utilized as a binder as well, and that is how we can reuse the plastic. Then there is a suggestion with respect to usage of biodegradable bioplastic. So the issue is with respect to the life of the plastic. So biodegradable bioplastic, it has a relatively lesser shelf life and it starts degrading in a speedier manner. Then the last suggestion is with respect to there is a need for an international legally binding treaty with respect to dealing of the single use plastics. And it is in this context there was supposed to be a treaty that was to be signed, but India has refrained from signing to ban the use of single use plastic, and instead we have said that as of now we would like to go for regulated affair with respect to single use plastic, and we would not like to ban this particular single use plastic. Okay, so moving on to the last article for the day, that is inspired by the interview which was given on the Indian Express newspaper of today. So on today's Indian Express newspaper, page number 1, okay, the interview of Shri Ajay Kumar Sood, principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister, has been given. And in this particular interview, he gave a submission that we are one of the fastest growing major economies of the world, but there is an impediment to our growth. One of the various impediments to our growth is lack of scientific research and technological advancement. And if we can initiate that, we can achieve even 10 to 12% economic growth. And anyways, if we have to achieve that growth, this particular growth cannot be achieved on the borrowed technology and research. You'll have to invest in the research and development so as to achieve an economic growth of 10 to 12%. Now, what is the syllabus mapping with respect to this news? The syllabus mapping is with respect to GS3, that is science and technology developments and their application in everyday life. However, in past, there has been a question on with respect to the scientific policy of India. The question was, discuss India's achievements in the field of space science and technology. How the application of this technology has helped India in socio-economic development. So basically what UPSC tries to do, they'll try to discuss your judgment with respect to usage of science and technology in the everyday sphere, right? Not just in mains, but also in sometimes in preliminary as well. So let us understand the need for development of indigenous science and technology in this context. So the first point in this context is that if we are to achieve a sustained economic growth of 10 to 12%, this development of research as well as technology is quintessential with respect to that. Next, if we are to achieve Atmanirbhar Bharat goal, again the value of Atmanirbharta cannot be achieved on the borrowed technology or borrowed research. So Atmanirbharta will only come when we become Atmanirbhar with respect to our research, with respect to our technology. And in the past, there have been waves of technological advancement in the recent past as well. So at times it was felt that we missed those particular waves, right? So the author wants that we should not try to miss this particular wave in which technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, clean energy solutions, so on and forth, are reshaping our new world, right? So we should be able to use that particular technology to our advantage. Now let us understand what are the inherent issues with respect to scientific research in India. Okay, so the first issue with respect to scientific research in India is with respect to focus. In the past, we see that India was one of the pioneers when we talk about the science and technology sector. We have seen various great scientists not just in ancient India but also in the recent times. But again, the author says that there is a lack of focus, there is a lack of reverence that has been paid to the subject of research in the recent times. There is an attraction with respect to in the young students, there is an attraction with respect to the management jobs, with respect to the administrative jobs, with respect to technological jobs, right? But there is no such enthusiasm in the students when it comes to research oriented jobs in India. Then there is an issue with respect to the quality of researches which are conducted in the Indian institutions. There is a data that suggests that we are third in the number of publication of research journals, but very scantily few research journals get published in the major very few papers get published in the major scientific journals of repute, right? Then there is an issue with respect to expenditure. We merely spend 0.7% of our GDP. We merely spend 0.7% of our GDP on the research, whereas China spends, pardon for the interruption for today, right? There have been certain constant interruptions. Sorry. China spends close to 2.5% of GDP on research and development, whereas USA spends close to 3.5% of GDP. Hello. Am I audible? So I apologize for the interruptions that have been caused in today's session. Okay, so coming back to the topic, what are the issues in the scientific research in India? We have already discussed the issues like lack of focus, because in today's world the focus has been shifted. Earlier, the students used to the brightest of the all students used to opt for research, right? But now the priorities have changed. Students generally opt for management, administration, so on and forth, and they are not interested in research. Then there are issues with respect to the quality of research, because we are number third in the production of journals, publishing, but our journals are not getting published in the internationally reputed journals. Okay, so the third aspect was with respect to the expenditure. We are only spending 0.7% of our GDP on the research and development, whereas countries like China and USA are spending close to 3%, 3.5, even 3.5% of GDP on R&D. Next, there is an issue with respect to the commitment to long-term funding. See, everything generally, these issues like scientific research should not be politicized. But as soon as the government changes, their priorities changes, and as soon as the priorities changes, their funding patterns and mechanisms also change. So the funding is generally done in terms of 2 years, 3 years, so on and forth, and we are not able to commit long-term funding to research and development projects. And critical technologies like this, they need a long-term sustained funding for the results to come. Okay, Then the next aspect is with respect to the dominance of public sector in funding. And even in the public sector, the dominance is with respect to central government. The other two stakeholders, for example, the state governments are very busy only in terms of ensuring the primary education, that they do not offer any funding and research support to the higher education institutions. Okay, and then if you talk about USA, majority of funding is done by the private sector. There is a industry, education and research connect. So industries on their own volition go to the institutions, they commit certain amount, and then they get the researches patented. So this kind of mechanism is not available in India. Next issue is very interesting issue, that in India, even with the senior scientists, there is an issue with respect to uh, becoming an administrator. Even the senior scientists want to become administrators. So there is a race in the senior scientists to become directors and administrators of the premier institutions. However, the problem with this approach is that the aptitude required for becoming an administrator is very much different from the aptitude required to become a researcher. A person might be a very good scientist, but he may not become a very good administrator, because for becoming an administrator, say let us say management, tax, so on and forth are required. But for becoming a researcher, research aptitude, going deep into the subject, these kind of things are required. But because becoming an administrator is linked with social prestige, so most of the senior professors go for becoming an administrator, and they leave the researches behind, and it is considered that research is a job which is associated with the junior and subordinate professors. So this is the issue with respect to professors joining the administrative post. And then there is a peculiar issue in India which is called as gatekeeper syndrome. So this is a byproduct of again colonial legacy. After immediately after independence, whatever little amount we had, we spent it on the premier institutions, so to say. So whatever technologies that we used to purchase from the Western world, those technologies, those machineries, so those devices were given to the uh, premier institutes. But over the period, premier institutes, what they started to develop a attitude that these technologies are reserved only for us. So they don't trickle down the usage and the derivatives that they gain from those technologies to the other institutions, right? So they kind of act like gatekeepers to the recent technological advancements. And this is also again reflected in the funding patterns of the government as well. So these are the issues with respect to scientific research in India. Now, to deal with all these issues and challenges, the government came up with an idea of National Research Foundation. What is it? It is an institute, it is it is an initiative with a corpus of 5,000 crores. Pardon me. It is a corpus of 50,000 crores for over the period of 5 years. What is the objective of National Research Foundation? The objective is to catalyze and transform the institutions in India into world-class institutions. The next objective is with respect to boosting of research and innovation in India, to provide more funding and streamlined funding. There are hurdles with respect to funding of research in India. So it was felt that more funding is needed, obviously, and along with it, streamlined funding is needed. So it should not be like that a particular researcher applied for funding in an year 2024, and he is about to get that fund uh, when the bus has passed, maybe in 2025. So this should not happen. There should be a streamlined mechanism of funding. Then there is a mismatch between academia, industry, and the government. So in order to streamline that, it will try to establish a link between academia, industry, society, and government. And lastly, it will provide high level strategic directions for research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. What are going to be the functions and responsibilities with respect to NRF? First is with respect to formulation of comprehensive roadmaps with respect to research and development ecosystem in India. Then fostering R&D infrastructure which is lacking in India. The next objectives are with respect to transforming institutions into world-class centers of excellence in India. Then to promote interdisciplinary approach and collaboration across various disciplines in India that are associated with research, development, and cutting edge technologies. Then the next objective is with respect to development of strategic vision. It is a part of India's strategic vision to position itself as a global leader in research and innovation. And to fulfill this particular ambition, the institution of NRF shall come handy. Then the institutions in India have a particular flaw that they are not having a self-sustaining orientation. They have to be constantly nudged and guided by the research advancements that are going on in the world. So in order to come up with the solution, this particular institution of NRF will align with global priorities. What are the changing patterns of research? What is going on in the world? What shall we focus on? These kind of questions shall be raised and the issues shall be resolved by the NRF, that the our our researches shall be aligned by the global priorities. Then lastly, it will also again act as investment catalyst for promoting investment in both public and private sector services as and create an overall research ecosystem in India. Moreover, there are certain provisions that shall be that shall be dealt with the institution of NRF. You can go on and read those all the details about these functions in the detailed PDF that shall be shared along with the video. Then let us understand the issues and challenges associated with the institution of even NRF that might come as the time goes. Okay, so bureaucratic red tapeism is again a perennial issue in India. It has impacted the institutions in the past, and it has the propensity of impacting institutions in the future. Again, there are challenges with respect to prioritization of research. The questions like which areas to be prioritized, which areas should we be focusing on, is again a challenge to the government. And being a democracy, there are generally chances that the governments come and go every 5 years. So the priorities of the governments and institutions change, right? So we need to have a plan, a roadmap with respect to prioritization of research, and we need to aggressively work upon those ideas before the time of the idea passes itself, right? So this is a challenge for them. Then there are issues with respect to accountability and transparency mechanism with respect to sharing of funding with various institutions. Those are again the challenges in front of the NRF. Then there are issues with respect to associated issues with respect to equity of access with respect to resources. These are the challenges. Again, international collaboration is one of the mechanism with which we can go for. And in fact, in one of the DNS, we had covered a particular scheme with which an international researcher can come over here in India and conduct their research for a particular period of years. Please write it down in the comment section that what is the name of that particular scheme. And there are close to around 1 lakh Indians which have done PhD and are doing researches in various premier institutions of the world. So this particular mechanism will act as a bridge for international collaboration as well. Then it will also there are issues with respect to evaluation and impact assessment and long term sustainability of those particular projects that this particular institution needs to be prepared for understanding. And lastly, the challenge is with respect to long term sustainability and the funding operations of the NRF. As of now, the corpus is 50,000 crores, which is a handsome amount, but the period is again 5 years. So there are challenges with respect to sustainability of the funds, and then stakeholder engagement is one of the issues with respect to which there can be challenges in the NRF. So with this, we conclude the session for today. And yes, before conclusion, there are some certain suggestions and way forward which were given in the economic survey of 2018-19 with respect to improving the research ecosystem in India. See, the problems remain the same. One of the solution to those problems was the institution of NRF. What else can be done? What else can be done with respect to improving the research ecosystem in India, which was given in economic survey? That we need to improve math and reasoning capabilities of students at the primary level. We have already covered the issue of lack of competence and interest with respect to math and reasoning skills in the DNS when the ASAR report came. You can go and watch that video. Okay, so the research again is conducted and led by the central government and central government funded institutions. However, the undertone of the research should be shifted. The research should now the research should be led by the investors in research and private sector also. So this can be one of the solutions. The next solution can be increased funding by two stakeholders, that is state government and private sector. Again, we have a scientific diaspora that is close to 1 lakh. Okay, so this diaspora can be brought in, and for the collaboration can be achieved along with the diaspora. And then we need to overall develop a culture in our institutions of higher learning as well. So these are the suggestions which were given by the Economic Survey 2018 and 19 with respect to research and development in India. With this, we end our session for today. Again, I take your I seek your apology for the interruptions that were caused in today's session. So thank you for watching. I hope to meet you soon. Good night.